Hello YouTube, I'm David Frankel and I'm at London St Pancras. It's out with the trips and holidays and in with the gap year.
Good morning ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on board the Eurostar service to Calais, Lille and Brussels.
So here I am outside Brussels Midi. So this is it, the Atomium. So here I am at Liège station, which is an absolutely fantastic station. Well, I've made it to Luxembourg. I've crossed an international border without even realising. Good morning, it is now Tuesday here in slightly rainy Luxembourg. So far I've been hosteling, but here in Luxembourg I'm staying with some family friends. So that was Ouvrage-Hackenberg on the Maginot Line. And on one final thought after seeing that, if I were the Wehrmacht, I would probably also want to go around it. Here I am at Luxembourg. It is now Sunday. I've had a lovely few days here, slightly more relaxing few days, but my laptop is still broken, annoyingly enough. In any case, I'm now beginning the next phase of my interrailing trip. I'm heading into Germany. Welcome to InterRail, the series from my 2 months of interrailing around Europe by train from London to Budapest the long way. I'll visit Brussels and stay with some family friends in Luxembourg before heading east into Germany, visiting Cologne and Berlin. I'll then take a diversion north, stopping off at Hamburg on my way to Copenhagen via the famous train ferry which has since ended, before heading back into Germany to visit Nuremberg, Munich and meeting my parents at my former home of Frankfurt. I'll then head south into France through Strasbourg, Lyon and Nice, before running along the Mediterranean and through northern Italy via Genova, Florence and Venice. I'll then head north through the spectacular Brenner Pass and right across Austria, before finally finishing off in the Hungarian capital and my other home city of Budapest. Picking up where I left off in Luxembourg, I'll head along the Moselle River to Koblenz before catching a train north to Cologne. From there, I'll go to Wuppertal to see the famous Schwebebahn and to Essen to hunt for some old DLR trains. I'll then head east, stopping over in Hanover before arriving at the German capital of Berlin, one of my favourite cities in Europe. Elbow test miserably failed. So here I am at Koblenz. So I could go straight from here to Cologne. There's a train in 15 minutes. But I thought I might stop off here for some lunch and see spend an hour in Koblenz. Well, there it is, the Rhine. There's a little cable car over there, but not going on it because I'm going to head back to the station. Now waiting for my train to Cologne. It's an intercity service to Hamburg, and shock horror, it's running late. So here I am in Cologne again, except this time I'm not just changing trains, I'm actually coming to see the city. Right, there's Cologne Station and Cologne Cathedral. Possibly the smallest distance between a city's main station and cathedral, probably anywhere, to be honest. Is there anywhere in the world where it's this close? I wonder. Good morning, today is Monday, Shana Tova. It is Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, and for the first time in about 10 years, I'm not actually doing anything. I'm not particularly religious, but I do usually go to shul during the high holidays, and this year I'm not, and it feels a bit weird. I just remembered one of my tasks for this morning that I'd briefly forgotten about is to try once again to get my laptop fixed. Having finally dropped off my laptop, I spent the rest of the afternoon exploring a bit of Cologne by foot. So I've crossed the Rhine to what is known as the Köln Triangle, as in the exact space you can stand to take a good picture of the bridge and the cathedral. I'm going to cross back over, drop off my laptop, and then go and explore the old town over there. Bridge is covered in padlocks.
As you can see here, the most ridiculous thing I found, these walls of the bridge are covered in padlocks.
I have absolutely no idea who Thierry Jaspert is, but somebody doesn't seem to like him very much. Well, a quick Google search doesn't really tell me very much. Apparently he put them up himself. Maybe it's an instruction. So there's the Chocolate Museum. I'm going to give it a miss this time around. So, well, actually, this is a little island in the Rhine. It looks like an old docklands area. In fact, I can see some tracks over there that are a bit of a giveaway. And there is the German Sport and Olympics Museum, but I'm slightly more interested in what the building itself was. Apparently there was an old customs office, basically, because this was the old dock. In any case, it's closed, so I'm not going in there even if I wanted to. I'm going to head that way, away from the river, into the old town. I do love this bridge. That looks very much like a swing bridge, although I imagine it's not actually swung very often. It's still operational. I've got those barriers just in case. This apparently is a piece of the old Roman sewage system. That was literally brought up to ground level and just left here as a monument. Delightful. Sadly, the town hall was closed. So this is the old market area, right in the old town basically. Next to the town hall is the tram through time, taking you through the history of the city on a virtual reality tram ride, if you're willing to spare €12. It's time to go and see Cologne Cathedral. Also, fun fact, between 1880 and 1890, for a period of 10 years, this was the world's tallest building. It was the Burj Khalifa of its day. And this, meanwhile, is a very poorly designed fountain. And just next door is a slightly smaller, but nonetheless also very historic landmark, remains of the Roman North Gate, or something like that. So you can also go up to the top, which I didn't realise. Just got time to squeeze that in. Up and up and up and up. That was a hell of a climb. Luckily I've made it to the top. Jokes. There's some more stairs. Oh, I think we've got to the top. Bloody hell. Oh no, there's some more stairs. Just a few. Okay, now I've made it to the top. Fun fact, Cologne Cathedral may look tall, but it's actually only as high as a 15-storey building. Somebody works in that information booth over there, which means somebody has the thankless job of having to walk all the way up here and down every single day. I think once is probably enough for me. Down and 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 down. Now Tuesday, it's absolutely pissing it down. I've booked a walking tour for 12:10, so in the meantime I'm going to go back to the cathedral and finish off what I didn't do yesterday, which was the bells and I think the crypts underneath. And I think this door was actually closed by the time I went down. I don't think I just walked past it. Anyway, back to do it now. Joined a walking tour, and this is my tour guide, David.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good name.
Yeah.
So it's now about 4 o'clock on Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. We had the walking tour, and then the group of us, we all sat down and had some lunch, which was nice. From all over the place. Somebody from America, somebody from Australia, somebody from Canada, somebody from Israel. Yeah, big old group. And of course, me, the token Brit. Left on the programme for today is the cable car and the Rhine River cruise at 6 o'clock. So it'll be a stroll. So I've also got to go and pick up my laptop. The guy didn't call me back, so I'm going to go check on him before it closes at 5. They are closed for some reason. That's really not good. Right, so I'll have to come back tomorrow morning. Pain in the arse. Welcome to Zoo. This is of course the stop for the zoo, but it's also the stop for the cable car. So the cable car. Right, next on the programme, run! After a bit of searching around, the fabled 6 PM boat didn't seem to actually exist. After a while I gave up and decided to walk back along the River Rhine to my hostel instead. Hello, it is now Wednesday the 2nd of October. I have left the hostel and retrieved my laptop, and drumroll please, I think it's working again, which is such a relief. I wasn't actually expecting them to succeed. I thought I was going to have to get some piece of hardware replaced, and that would be a job for Berlin, but it looks like the laptop is now back in working order. Obviously it's totally blank, and I'm slightly worried that the setup's in German, but I'm sure I can sort that out tonight. I'm now leaving Cologne. I'm going to my next stop, Wuppertal. So I'm just crossing the rail bridge again. At least I was about to, before I noticed something that I think I missed the day before yesterday. Look at these. These look mysteriously like old tram tracks. The Hohenzollern Bridge, like many bridges across Europe, was rebuilt after being destroyed during the Second World War. Prior to the war, it had 3 sections, 2 rail and 1 road, which included tram tracks. After the Second World War, the 2 rail sections were rebuilt, but the road one wasn't, which is why these tram tracks seem to lead to nowhere. A new 3rd section was built in the 1980s on the other side, so what was once the middle section is now the southernmost section, and the former northernmost section is now the middle section. The new section was, of course, added to expand capacity on a very congested section of railway. The weather is very bizarre. Right now it's sunny, but there is this massive, very aggressive looking cloud straight overhead, and I just had enough time to buy myself a pretzel. This is my first ever ICE train. It's one of the older ones, but even so, let's hop on board. That's not entirely true. I travelled by ICE at least once when I was young and living in Frankfurt, when we spent the weekend in Berlin, but I wouldn't have been older than 8 at the time, so I don't really remember it. Has an onboard restaurant. Not too shabby. Wuppertal is not a big station. I don't think it's a particularly big town. Of course, I'm only here for one reason, and that reason is the famous Wuppertal suspension railway. Not a monorail, a suspension railway. Haven't seen one of those before. Anyway, I think what I'm going to do is try and find a locker to drop my bag off in. And I'm going to go find the suspension railway. So here it is, the Wuppertal Schwebebahn, the Wuppertal suspension railway, which was actually closed for a while, but it reopened at the beginning of August. first actual hotel of the trip so far. Wow, look at all this space. I've got a bed and a TV and a desk and a private toilet. No bathtub, but you know. Luxury, absolute luxury. Now, on the downside, there's no kitchens and nobody to talk to. So, it's about 7 o'clock. Had a shower and tried to set up my laptop, and I've realised there's a couple of problems with it. The touchscreen and the sound are not working. There's some driver missing. It's currently doing about 100 updates, so apparently that will probably solve that particular problem. But I've also noticed that half of the technical side of the computer is in German, because I'm guessing it was installed or partially installed in German. And I don't know how to change that, which is slightly annoying. So today is Thursday. After a lot of fiddling around, the laptop is now back up and running. This morning I tried to find a laundromat, but everything is closed because it's German Unity Day. Anyway, today I'm leaving Wuppertal. I'm heading towards Hanover, but first I'm going to stop off in Essen to try and find some old DLR trains. I've come to Essen in search of London's old Docklands Light Railway P86, P89 stock, which was sold to Essen in the late 1990s, where they were retrospectively fitted with driver's cabs and pantographs. Oh, that's my train. I just moved it over to platform 4. So here I am in Hanover. Checked into my hostel. It's a bit of a miserable looking hostel, to be honest. Quite a Ryanair vibe. It's even got the Ryanair colour scheme, although in contrast to Ryanair, when it says Hanover, it means Hanover. It's bang in the middle, very well located. So according to the article I read on Hanover, one of the best places to go is the new town hall. This, I think, is the old town hall. This, meanwhile, is the market hall, which A, is architecturally unremarkable, and B, looks very closed. I think I've found the old town. Apparently, at the end of the Second World War, they gathered up all the remaining old kind of wooden buildings and popped them here in the middle to make a kind of old town centre. Good morning, it is now Friday. I'm here in Hanover. I've decided to spend the whole day here and go to Berlin in the evening because I didn't get to see all that much of it yesterday. In my hostel I met an Australian woman who's also touring around Europe, but unlike me she's not going by train, but cycling, having started in Switzerland, gone up to the Netherlands and then across on her way to Berlin, stopping in here in Hanover, all by bike, which, as somebody who does like to cycle a bit myself, I think is absolutely insane. But in the brilliant kind of way. Apparently there's a red line It goes around the city. It's designed for tourists to follow. I'm sure I'll pick that up in a bit. At first sight I thought it was a cycle lane. Right, it is now 11:15. First order of business is to visit the new town hall. So this is the impressive new town hall. And this is also where you can finish off the red line, which I'll be following in a moment. But first, let's go inside, and I think you can also go up and get a good view of the surrounding area. So the waiting time for the viewing platform is apparently 40 minutes. Before I go up, we'll have a walk around the ground floor. Apparently they've got some great scale models of Hanover at 4 different points in history: pre-industrial, 1939, 1945 and today. And I think this is probably the first one.
Oh Gott.
Getting up to the top involves a rather unique bending lift.
Ist mir noch nichts passiert.
Oh Gott. Das fährt so langsam. Oh mein Gott. Oh mein Gott.
So here I am on top of the town hall. There's actually one floor up, but I think the view's pretty much the same and there's less people here. You can look out over Hanover. That was definitely one of the weirdest lifts I've ever been on. How many floors does one viewing tower need? If you talk your increments of meters, then the view from each one is pretty much the same. I do still feel a need to have climbed to the very top since I've come this far. There we go, done it. And now I can go back down.
Oh, Blut.
So that was the new town hall and a bit of green space behind it, and now I'm going to pick up the red trail, which I think it's a circuit, so you can pretty much start anywhere. And I'm going to start it here at the new town hall, follow it around this way and see where it takes me. this is the Lane River here, and there are some nice sculptures. The Nanas, girls, 3 girls they're called. So we seem to be entering the old town, but here is some kind of intersection between the different red lines. I'm assuming that I'm supposed to go that way, and then it's going to later loop round and take me that way. Hopefully I'm right, because if not, then I might miss out on a section. But I think this is the loop. So this is the History Museum of Hanover, which looks very interesting, but unfortunately everything is in German and I can't actually understand it. There's also some lovely carriages in the back, but they're very strict for some reason about not taking photos, so obviously I can't show you that. But they were great, just take my word for it. So here I am outside the Marktkirche, which I think is Hanover's largest church, with some funny features, including a pentagram and a Magen David on the side of the tower, and also this door, which features a tank, a burning house, and lots of skeletons. Brings me here back to the old town hall, which I saw yesterday. And lo and behold, the trail has brought me back to the market hall, and today it's open. Even though I feel like I'm kind of running out of time, I am quite hungry, so I'm going to stop off for a very quick bite to eat. This is the market hall. So the red trail starts and finishes here at the Hauptbahnhof. Now the guys I was chatting to yesterday, and I asked them, what should I do with my day in Hanover? They told me about this very interesting, they do tours of something underneath the station. A bit of research showed that it's a bit like the Hidden London tours, where there's basically a tram stop under the station that they built and never used, and occasionally they do tours of it. But unfortunately there isn't one today. The next one is in 4 days on the 8th, so I won't be doing that today. So my plan now is to finish the red trail. I started again and take it as far as the new town hall where I started, and then I'm going to hop on the U-Bahn and visit what is called the Versailles of Germany. Here we get to one of the first stops on the Red Line tour, or for me, one of the last. It's the Opera House. I did in fact walk past this yesterday. And my final stop on the Red Line tour, which I actually walked past this morning on my way to the new town hall, my hostel is just down there, is the Gideon Church. Which, as you can see, was not fully rebuilt after the Second World War, but has been left as a ruin, quite a relatively intact ruin, but the roof is gone, and obviously it's not in use, but it's the ruin of a church. Let's go have a close look. Here I am at Herrenhauser Gartenstop. I'm of course here to visit the Herrenhaus. And here I am in Berlin. Last here on the history trip in July 2016, and I've been absolutely itching to come back ever since because I just really liked it. So I've scheduled 6 nights here. So I've joined a walking tour. Today is Saturday, my first full day in Berlin. We start here outside Friedrichstrasse station, which I will come back to later because I want to have a good look at it. Friedrichstrasse was one of the main crossing points between East and West Berlin when Berlin was divided. If you wanted to basically catch any international train, you would come here. So this was sort of for West Germany, this was the gateway to West Berlin. For East Germany, this was the gateway to the west, basically. So this is what was formerly the Reichstag building, now the Bundestag, the seat of German Parliament, which we of course visited in 2016. We've stopped off here on the tour, but I will be coming back here later to go up to the dome again. Nearby is Berlin's Holocaust Memorial. And the car park where the famous Führer bunker used to be located. Berlin made a deliberate decision not to mark the site or turn it into a memorial, instead leaving it as an unmarked car park. Nearby is a memorial to George Elser, who attempted to assassinate Hitler in 1939. We pass an intact section of wall outside the Topography of Ddr Museum, which I'll come back to later, before finishing the tour at Babelplatz, surrounded by the buildings of the Humboldt University. So the walking tour finishes here in Babelplatz, where famously in 1933 there was a burning of the books right in this square over here. So the walking tour basically takes you around a lot of interesting places in Berlin, but because there's so many of them, it just kind of rushes through them. So if you want to see Berlin, the walking tour itself doesn't really do that. It more kind of gives you a sample and then lets you go off on your own to go back and trace your steps, which is exactly what I'm doing. So here I am outside the Brandenburg Gate. I've stopped for lunch and now I've got myself a crepe. Let's go and explore a bit more of central Berlin. So there's some sort of fairground going on here. I'm guessing it's because earlier this week was German Unity Day, with the surrounding roads all closed off, as they should be. Pedestrianised it. And of course on the other side of Brandenburg Gate you have the city's kind of centre of small protests and people making spectacles of themselves, often both at the same time. Here we have an almost naked gay Jesus type figure here. And my video just got demonetised. We've got a protester here for... oh no, that's just a sign saying free tours. And so here I am back at the Holocaust Memorial Square, made up primarily of these concrete blocks of various sizes, and of course the ground itself goes up and down. If you took all the blocks away you'd just see a very kind of randomly hilly site. So twice now I've walked through this, but I've never really had that long to actually have a look at it in full. Sorry. And here, this car park surrounded by apartments is of course the location of the Führerbunker, where the Soviets absolutely destroyed most of it and then filled the rest in with gravel. So there are still a handful of places where there are bits of the wall that have just been left here. So this is Potsdamer Platz, which is now a square, as opposed to before when it was just kind of borderland in a way. And walk along this, most of it is marked like this with cobblestones. What I might end up doing, maybe today or later on, is just do that walk around it. I'm sure it must be fairly easy to find the path of it online. One of the largest single remaining sections of the wall is here at the Topography of Ddr Museum, which itself is on this site of, I think, the former SS headquarters. This was one of the places we came to last time, but I'm going to go in anyway and have another look around. So here I am, still at the Topography of Ddr Museum. It's now about 5 o'clock, spent a good few hours in there. There's a very interesting temporary exhibition out here, all about Poland and Warsaw. And then there's the permanent exhibition about, you know, Nazi terror. How the Nazi state worked, basically, and all the terrible, terrible things it did. I'm now going to walk again to Checkpoint Charlie because we walked through on the walking tour, but it was very rushed, so we got about 2 minutes to stand there. So I'm going to go back and take another look. Not that there's any actual original part of the checkpoint left, it's all replica. Mum will be happy. Trabant. I think you can hire them for the day to do a tour guide or something. And things. I'm not one to talk. So to finish off the day, I visited the Jewish Museum, which was one of the places we did not go in 2016. The permanent exhibition is actually closed at the moment, but there are a handful of temporary exhibitions in there, including a very interesting photo exhibition about Israel and Palestine. Is Sunday, I'm out and about again, but instead of doing regular sightseeing today, I've taken a day to basically explore some bits of Berlin's U-Bahn and S-Bahn networks, and with an eye on seeing a bit of Berlin's history through rail and public transport. And I also am filming a short series of videos which I've been planning to do on the topic of just that today, mainly about how the Berlin War affected the rail service of Berlin and how it all worked during that era of division. I'm starting here at Rosenthaler Platz because that's where my hostel is, and I'm going to start by exploring the 4-track railway through central Berlin, the Stadtbahn. So I've come to Friedrichstrasse, one of the medium-sized stations along the route, but it's right in the centre of Berlin and such is very busy. It would be best described as the Oxford Road of Berlin. Friedrichstrasse is a fairly normal-looking station, but its history is actually really, really fascinating. I've come to Verlankenstrasse, which by a quirk of geography was technically within East Berlin, but served West Berlin. The station was accessible to West Berliners, but was staffed by East German railway staff. So I've deviated slightly from the Stadtbahn to go up to Verlankenstrasse, and now I've come south to look for the remains of Anhalter Bahnhof, one of Berlin's lost termini. And I think they demolished most of the station except for a little bit of the facade at the front, which was just left there. And now, once I find it, in fact that's it over there, just slightly obscured by those trees. Right, I'm now going to head north to the Hauptbahnhof, changing at Brandenburger Tor and taking in the short little Waterloo and City Line equivalent they have here called the U55. I've come to Berlin-Hamburger Bahnhof, which despite having closed as far back as 1884, is actually completely still intact, because when it was closed it was turned into a railway museum. It's now an art museum instead. Come up here at Berlin Zoological Garten, or as we would call it, Berlin Zoo. I'm taking another quick diversion away from the Stadtbahn to try and find a London Underground logo. Wittenbergplatz. Mission, find the London Underground logo. And stop the clock. And stop the clock, there it is. Right, well that was easy. This building here, by the way, was where a lot of the border and customs checks took place. It's now a museum, appropriately known as the Palace of Tears. It is closed at the moment, but I might come back another day. So I've come to Nordbahnhof in search for A, the remains of yet another former Grand Terminus at the surface level, and B, a special exhibit somewhere about the Cold War era ghost metro stations of Berlin, which included this station. Nordbahnhof trains rumbled through here at low speed but didn't stop, and armed guards roamed the platforms making sure that nobody tried to get on or off. Rather frustratingly, it's only 7 o'clock and it's already dark. I hate that. I want my daylight. Realistically, I should just wake up earlier and go to bed earlier. But you know, that would require self-discipline. There's some tracks on the ground here. They don't look like actual rails, but they clearly represent them. So Nordbahnhof was quite a large station. It had one large long-distance station and another smaller suburban station next door, and this little building here is all that remains of the suburban station, which is now a restaurant. So today is Monday. Once again, I'm setting off early afternoon. It's about 1 o'clock. Had the morning off to edit some videos, do a bit of admin. Today I'm off to go and see a few museums. Yesterday I saw but did not go inside the Palace of Tears next to Friedrichstrasse because it was closed. So I've decided today I'm going to go back and do that. Apparently one museum that is open today, and this was on my list, but I have walked up to it totally by accident. It's just across the river. It's the Ddr Museum. Why don't I take a look? So that was the Ddr Museum, Deutsche Democratic Republic, or East Germany, as it was commonly known by everyone else. Lots of stuff about basically what East Germany was like on a day-to-day basis rather than a macro historical kind of view. So it looks about kind of daily life, personal life, work, that kind of thing, and travelling abroad. And to somebody, you know, who lives in the UK and was born in 2001, this stuff should be really quite alien, and yet there are a handful of things in there that I looked at and thought, oh, I know that. I've seen this before. And it's probably because a lot of what was East German culture was also Cold War era Hungarian culture, and some of that stuff clearly stuck around in Hungary even into the early to mid 2000s, where I, you know, saw a lot of it while spending time with my cousins in Budapest in the 2000s. So it's quite bizarre to look at something from 1980s East Germany and think, oh, I've seen this before. I remember this. This is really weird. Well, there you go. So today is Tuesday, and today I'm setting off to do the things that I didn't do yesterday because all the museums were closed. So I'm starting with the Palace of Tears, then I'm going to the Technology Museum, and then I'm going to go down to Tempelhof Airport, Park and Museum. Starting the day here at Rosenthaler Platz tram stop. Update. I am a colossal idiot and have left the hostel without my money belt. Right, back to the hostel. Right, attempt 2. It's about 45 minutes down the drain. Now I'm going to try once again to go to the Palace of Tears. So I'm back again at Anhalter Bahnhof. This time I've come to visit the Technology Museum, which apparently has much of what was originally stored in the Hamburger Bahnhof Museum before World War II. It's now an art museum, used to be a railway museum, but a lot of the stuff is now in the Technology Museum right next to another abandoned Berlin station, which is Anhalter Bahnhof. Funny how everything sort of ties together. So I'm now heading towards the German Technology Museum, just walking down what was the approach of the Anhalter Bahnhof. And I've again just remembered that Tempelhof closes at 5, so if I'm going to spend an appreciable amount of time here, then I probably won't make it to Tempelhof today either. It's my own fault for, again, leaving the hostel way too late in the day. So I can't really blame all the museums for closing early, can I? Good morning, it is now Thursday. Ready to make the most of my last 2 days in Berlin. And I'll start today by heading off to finally go to Tempelhof Airport. So I've come to Tempelhof in search for one of Berlin's former airports. The runway is now a park, and the terminal building, which you see in front of me, is now a museum. Let's have a look around. So this is not actually a museum per se, but it's the old terminal building, and they do guided tours. The next one is at 1:30 and it takes 2 hours. But in the meantime, there's also the airfield itself, which is open to the public as a park. So after walking alongside a lot of high security fences, I finally found what looks like a public way in. And the tickets for the 1:30 tour are sold out. Bollocks. There's a lesson in there somewhere. but never mind. In light of that, I'm going to go to my next stop, which is the Tiergarten and the Victory Column. Come to Tiergarten on the far side of the large park, the Tiergarten, which I'm going to walk through towards Brandenburg Gate. Is the Soviet War Memorial, placed here by the Soviets after World War II. So it's now about 3:30. I've made it to the other side of the Tiergarten. There's the Bundestag. My slot's in 3 hours, but my phone's just run out of battery, and unlike usual, I don't have my portable charger with me, so I need to go back to the hostel and get it. So I popped back to the hostel to charge my phone, and also realised I needed to switch rooms because I asked for an extra 2 days, but they could only give them to me if I moved rooms, which is what I've done. It's now 5:15. It's past lunchtime and beginning of dinner time, but I still haven't eaten. So I'm now going to try and grab a quick bite to eat before I go to the Reichstag. So here I am on the roof of the Reichstag, and there is the Reichstag dome, which is actually closed for cleaning this week, so you can't go inside, but you can still come to the roof and see the view, which I think is the main attraction. The dome is closed for cleaning. Don't see very much cleaning going on. Extinction Rebellion have taken over a bridge. All respect to them, but I'm going back to my nice warm hostel. I'm at Kölnische Heide. So my original plan, when I first arrived in Berlin, was on my first day walking around the centre, saw the markings of where the line was on the ground, and I had an idea I could cycle along the Berlin Wall. And a few days later I looked it up, and it turns out the entire thing, the circumference, is about 87 miles, which is a little bit too long for me to cycle in one day. So I've decided to do just kind of the middle bit. So I'm starting here at Kölnische Heide on the Ringbahn, and I will be going all the way up through the city centre, finishing off at Reichstag, where I've already been. So that's my plan, to cycle there through the city centre along the path of the Berlin Wall. I've hired a bike for the day. This one's come from the hostel. It cost me €12. Apparently, I've seen a handful of other places, they all seem to say bike hire for a day, €12. That seems to be a kind of agreed magic number. Just along here is the Eastside Gallery, one of the main Berlin Wall museums, which I haven't actually been to yet, so I might stop off and visit it, since I'm here anyway. So I was a little bit confused. Oh, Trabants. So I was a little bit confused at first, because on Google Maps I saw the Eastside Gallery and the Wall Museum. I thought they were two different things. Well, the Eastside Gallery is actually the physical piece of wall that's here, as opposed to an exhibition attached to it. And there is also the Wall Museum, which is just over there. So I'm going to go visit the Wall Museum. So this is the Ober Bridge, which we're looking at here from the balcony. It was apparently initially sealed off completely, then opened in 1972 as an official crossing point. And you can see there the U-Bahn trains crossing it. The Eastside Gallery just keeps on going. There's a huge chunk here, far bigger than Topography of Terror. There's just loads and loads of wall with all of these really creative and colourful bits of art on it. I'm so disappointed I didn't come here last time. This is brilliant. I'm so very glad that I did come here this time. And as if by magic, we've arrived at Checkpoint Charlie. We've now definitely crossed from suburban Berlin into central Touristville Berlin. Seeing a lot of police all of a sudden. This is Potsdamer Platz, by the way. Just a quick note, by the way, I've seen loads of these kind of elevated blue and pink pipes throughout the city, and I have absolutely no idea what they are. The pipes are linked to construction sites across the city, as the city of Berlin was built on what was once swampland. Construction sites therefore need water to be pumped out of the ground, which is then directed to the River Spree via these pipes. There's more of them. It's Extinction Rebellion. a chunk of wall in the middle of the road there, but my chances of successfully getting across seem slim. So this, according to this information plaque here, is the Korean Pavilion of Reunification. So here in the centre of Berlin, some old bits of the Berlin Wall, they've basically created a monument to the eventual hope of reuniting Korea, which, like Berlin, was divided, like Germany, was divided at the end of the Second World War, but they did not have such a happy ending. This, by the way, is also the site of another abandoned railway station, Potsdam. You can see this kind of linear park is here, not coincidentally. That was the straight line kind of track approach. There's now this mound of, you know, kind of embankment, which some of the protesters are climbing. I'm going to go up there, get a better view of everything. Just around the corner from Potsdamer Platz is the last remaining Berlin Wall watchtower left in situ. You can climb up inside. So I've reached Nordbahnhof, yet another former Berlin station, which uncoincidentally closed at about the same time that Berlin was divided. In fact, it was 1952, if I'm not too badly mistaken. There's a little bit of the station still intact over there. I've already taken a look at that. What I haven't seen yet, just around the corner, is this. Another little bit of the Berlin Wall that's been left intact, plus this kind of art piece that accompanies it. Finally, I've come to my last stop, Wolleinkenstrasse, and that brings me to an end of this particular cycle, having cycled all the way from some random point on the wall in the south of the city to this random point in the north of the city, because I couldn't be asked to do the entire 87-mile circuit. So it is now Saturday, and after my extended week in Berlin, I'm now off on the next phase of my adventure. So that is the end of part 2 of the InterRail adventures. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.